And for the very first time, we are hearing from Carlos Smith. He was the man on the scene when this tragic shooting unfolded. So a lot of information came out in court today. Witnesses saying what they saw, but you were there. What's your reaction to what you heard came out in court today?
When I heard it, I'm just looking, it was unbelievable, but I was there. And I know for a fact none of that happened, how they just explained it. But my truth will get out here, and I hope everybody understand. That's really it. I can't even say too much right now, because it's just gonna feel like I'm going against them, they going against me, we just going back and forth. But the truth is gonna come out.
Romeca Meeks, the mother who took her child to school, and the baby daddy and his other baby mama came up there and attacked her, and the baby mama unalived her. Well, she finally has been charged with first-degree murder, right, y'all? As she rightfully have done so. But I'm trying to figure out why the fuck nigga ain't been charged either. Like, why he don't got accessory or whatever the case may be, because all this was behind him, because he want to play in one household and play in the other household. He should be held accountable just as well as the person who pulled the trigger. And it's crazy because the son has to suffer and to see this and to deal with this and miss his mother and know that somewhere, somehow his father has something to do with his mother being killed. And I know it's really confusing for that baby. I know that baby going through all type of emotions. That's who I really feel sorry for. But I really want the daddy, the fuck nigga, to be charged as well, because guess what? You played a part of that because you brought that person up there. So you knew that person had a firearm. You did. And you still allowed this lady to unalive your other baby mama because you want to dib and dab in two households. Men do not like to hold themselves accountable. And a lot of people don't, but men especially. But y'all know what to do. Get in the comments. Let's go. Justice for Romeca Meeks. And hopefully this baby daddy gets it too.
On the morning of September 8th, 2025, outside of South Loop Elementary School in Chicago, 31-year-old Romeca Blackmon kissed her 6-year-old son goodbye, tucked a handwritten note into his lunchbox, and watched him walk through those school doors for what would be the last time. Minutes later, she lay on the pavement, her life taken by 3 shots, while her son sat in his first-grade classroom just feet away. The person who fired those shots? A woman named Quadajah Johnson, 28 years old, who shared something deeply personal with Romeca. They both had children with the same man, Carlos Smith. But here's the question that haunts this case. How much of Romeca's ending was written by the man who stood between these two women? If you're already feeling that pull, that need to understand how something like this happens, then do me a favor right now. Hit that like button, subscribe to Crime Lab Report, and smash that bell icon, because cases like this need attention, they need voices, and they need justice. Missing out means stories like Romeca's stay buried longer than they should, and we can't let that happen. Let's keep going. Carlos Smith wasn't just a bystander in this story. He was a thread connecting 2 separate households, 2 separate women, 2 separate children, and ultimately, one devastating confrontation. To understand how we got to that September morning, we have to rewind and look at the life Carlos built, or maybe more accurately, the lives he tried to balance. Romeca Blackmon was a young mother living in Chicago, working hard to raise her son, a boy who was about to turn 7 years old. She and Carlos had a complicated relationship, one that had produced a child but hadn't resulted in a stable partnership. On the other side of Carlos's life was Quadajah Johnson, another young mother, this one with a 6-month-old baby, also fathered by Carlos. 2 women, 2 children, one man trying to keep both worlds spinning without them colliding. But worlds like that don't stay separate forever. Tension had been building for months. Court records show that Quadajah had filed detective orders against Romeca as far back as December 2024, and again in the summer of 2025. Romeca's family would later claim these orders were strategic, a way to build a paper trail, to paint Romeca as the aggressor in a situation where she was anything but. Whether those orders were justified or manipulative, they created a legal backdrop, a sense that these 2 women were on a collision course, and Carlos was the reason why. He wasn't just living a double life. He was the architect of a situation where jealousy, frustration, and anger were bound to explode. So what happens when you keep 2 families in the dark about each other? When you make promises you can't keep? When you let resentment simmer? You get September 8th, 2025. You get a school drop-off that turns into a crime scene. That morning started like any other for Romeca. She woke up, got her son ready for school, and did what countless mothers do every single day. She packed his lunch, wrote him a little note to remind him he was loved, and drove him to school in the South Loop neighborhood of Chicago. She posted a photo of that note on social media, a small moment of pride, a glimpse into the kind of mother she was. Her son walked into that building excited for first grade, and Romeca drove away. But instead of heading home, she drove back toward 20 West Cermak, and that's where everything fell apart. Now here's where Carlos Smith comes into the picture in a way that can't be ignored. That same morning, Carlos and Quadajah Johnson were together near his home. They had their 6-month-old baby with them, and at some point, they drove to the area where Quadajah's car was parked. They placed their infant in the back seat of her vehicle. Witnesses say this was around the same time Romeca returned to that very same block after dropping off her son. Think about that for a second. Was it coincidence? Did Romeca know Carlos would be there? Did he tell her? Did someone tip her off? We may never know the full truth, but what we do know is that when Romeca arrived, she found Carlos and Quadajah together, and a confrontation that followed would cost her everything. Witnesses who saw what happened next told police a story that paints Carlos Smith as far more than just a passive observer. According to their accounts, the two women began arguing. Carlos allegedly pushed Quadajah away from Romeca, but then things took a darker turn. Witnesses reported that Carlos slammed a car door on Romeca. Let that sink in. He didn't just separate them. He allegedly used physical force against the mother of his child. Then, according to testimony, he put Romeca in a chokehold. Imagine being in Romeca's position in that moment. You're being physically restrained by the father of your child, the man you once trusted, while another woman stands nearby. You're vulnerable. You're trapped. And then Romeca managed to break free from that chokehold. But freedom lasted only seconds. Prosecutors say that's when Quadajah Johnson pulled out a firearm and shot Romeca once. Then she paused. And then she fired 2 more times. 3 shots total. Police recovered 3 9mm casings from the scene. Romeca collapsed on that pavement, just blocks away from where her son sat in his classroom, and she never got back up. Quadajah Johnson was taken into custody at the scene. She told officers she had a concealed carry license, as if that somehow justified what had just happened. But here's the thing that has haunted Romeca's family and angered the public ever since. Carlos Smith, the man who allegedly physically assaulted Romeca moments before she was shot, the man who brought these 2 women into the same space, the man who created this entire toxic situation, walked away without a single charge. At first, the Cook County State's Attorney's Office said there wasn't enough evidence to charge Quadajah with anything, and she was released. Can you imagine being Romeca's mother, watching the woman who took your daughter's life walk free? For 2 weeks, the family demanded answers. They held vigils. They spoke to the media. They refused to let Romeca's story disappear. And finally, the pressure worked. Quadajah Johnson was eventually charged with first-degree murder. But Carlos? Nothing. No accessory charge. No assault charge. No accountability whatsoever. And that's what so many people can't accept. When Carlos Smith finally spoke publicly after Quadajah's court hearing, he claimed the testimony presented in court wasn't accurate. He said he was there and none of it happened the way witnesses described. He promised his truth would come out. But here's the question you have to ask yourself. If Carlos was truly innocent, if he truly had no role in escalating that confrontation, then why was Romeca in a chokehold? Why was a car door slammed on her? Why did multiple witnesses describe him using force against her? His words don't match the evidence, and his silence about his own actions speaks louder than any statement he's given. Romeca's son turned 7 years old just days after his mother was taken from him. His grandmother now has to explain why Mommy isn't coming to his birthday party, why she'll never pick him up from school again, why the last memory he has of her is a note in his lunchbox. This little boy lost his mother because his father couldn't be honest, couldn't choose, couldn't take responsibility for the chaos he created. And the saddest part? He'll grow up knowing his father played a role in his mother's death, even if the law doesn't hold him accountable. So here's what I want you to think about. What does justice look like in a case like this? Is it enough to charge the person who pulled the trigger? Or should the person who set everything in motion face consequences too? How do you rebuild trust in a system that lets someone like Carlos Smith walk free while a child grows up without a mother? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this conversation matters. If this story moved you, if it made you angry, if it made you think, then share this video. Make sure you're subscribed to Crime Lab Report. And check out our other cases where we dig deep into the truth. Romeca Blackmon's story deserves to be heard, and her son deserves a world that remembers his mother and demands better. Let's make sure that happens.